Hey guys, Th3 here and welcome to a new video. Before you watch the whole video on YouTube, have a look at the link down below in the description and it's going to take you to Odyssey. It's a platform that is an alternative to YouTube that I'm going to be testing, and over there, depending on how I set it up of course, you're not going to be facing any ads. There are other ways to help creators such as myself make a living from making content for you. More on that on their own website. Again, if you don't want to have a look at all the ads and if you want to join me on there for this little experiment, then click the link down below in the description. Now then, today I am playing a Commonwealth deck in a 1v1. It's the first time that I'm playing this Commonwealth deck, and I immediately get high with a soul against another corporal. The plan here is to capture terrain quickly, using a couple of infantry in helicopters, as well as then following up with a bunch of, depending on what the threat is, fusiliers, in order to deal with higher end threats, or just territorials and back those boys up with all sorts of tanks, and the Centurion AVRE. The entire deck can be found down below in the description. The objective here is to capture the buildings between Echo and Delta first, set up a bit of a defensive screen, ideally in Charlie, fall back into Golf, and push mostly on the left. I don't really want to have my forces go all the way across the highway in order to get there. That's not really going to be beneficial. So, time to set up the forces and get going. Now, the start here for me is important when it comes to seeing what they have, as well as being able to blind them. So I'm sending forward an AS-350 recon helo, and I'm sending forward a Sea Harrier FRS-1 that's going to be trying to take out their reconnaissance helicopter, if they have one. That remains to be seen, but for now I just want to try and, try a helo hunter, because I haven't really used one of those in ranked at all, I think. Anyway, the Sea Harrier dashes forward, the CH-147s, the SAS in their Lynx AH-7s, also dashing forward to try and capture the left-hand side. I immediately take out their KUs and promptly get hit by a Block 15. So the aircraft that I had sent in died, but potentially not completely lost, simply because I was able to take out their reconnaissance. This gives me potentially an informational advantage, as I'm trying to make my way over to Charlie with a couple of helicopters as well. It's a Milan. Or rather, yeah, it's a Milan in an AH-7, it's an SAS in an AH-7, and it is Highlanders in the 147. I spot their main column, and it is Martyr VTS-1, Martyr 2s mostly. So trying to get these guys in a flanking position to wipe out those Martyrs as they come into Charlie would be great. So, time to relocate the helos, and this turned out to be a bit of an overextension, because I don't really get the time to land, but I do get the time to land on the left. So the Highlanders are in position, the SAS are in position, and this way I hope to be able to establish a decent control over Delta first, before the enemy is able to move in. Now, with my intelligence and the knowledge that there are a couple of Martyr 2s coming in, I decide to get a couple of Leopards to start countering those. Unfortunately, the Martyrs on the right proved to be too much to deal with. The Milan is not really succeeding in hitting a target, surprised to absolutely no one, and unfortunately the entire party in the 147 dies. I am able to do a little bit of damage with the AH-7 rocket pods though. Now let's pull back some of these helos. I had sent forward helos on the left, but they already got taken out, so he has anti-air over on the left. That's fine. I can just start building up more forces here and start to build a front line. I want to dominate this sector. The right-hand side, well, it's not an afterthought per se, but it's more of a secondary concern. Now, the Highlanders 90 in this building are immediately able to take out a very important target in the form of the Leopard 2A1. That's 100 points right there that he's not going to be able to use. And with the Martyr 2s and the Martyr VTS 1s, he does still have fire support, but it's not really heavy tank material. Over here on the right, I get a couple more territorials to arrive, and they're going to take up position in the forest in Charlie. Now, one of the warriors got taken out by the Martyr VTS-1. There goes the second warrior. And unfortunately, at the moment, I don't have really anything to deal with them unless they get close, which they promptly do. And the Highlanders, again, with their Erics, are able to wipe out quite a few vehicles. There go both of the Martyrs. Panzer Grenadiers, however, and Martyr 2s are proving to be a bit of a, a nuisance, if you will. And I don't really have much that can deal with the Martyr 2s. Except for my Fusiliers, but even though they have a nice anti-tank weapon, if they are panicked, they're not going to do that well. So time to relocate those Leopard AS1 pluses and make sure that they take out the Martyrs, temporarily stunning them with the AH7s. Now over here I got a Stormer in position. I'm going to bring in a couple more Saracens, so that's more territorials there to secure the highway front, making sure that he's not going to push into Gulf from there, because that is a real concern. Leopards moving forward, one of them got detract, lovely. Over there I was temporarily able to spot the Flak Panzer Gepard A2 that he has. I'm thinking that was the culprit for shooting down some of my helos. And on Echo I deployed a Milan team just to make sure that he doesn't have that much opportunity to get more vehicles to cross that terrain. Now the right hand side is going to get some reinforcements, the left hand side is still the focal point. I want to try and get spotters, I want to try and deal with the infantry quickly, so let's call in a Centurion AVRE. Potentially not the best unit in ranked, because it is very limited in its use. It does a ton of damage against infantry, but the moment that it encounters anything with armor, it's, well, it's vastly ineffective. So I need to make sure that I have a combination going of Martyrs, Leopards and the Centurion AVRE. That's the deal. Meanwhile, more Saracens arriving, more territorials to back up the SAS that I have over there in the building, and another tank. Since the Leopards are mobile, I'm able to use those to get a pretty decent position early on, and dash forward and dash back as required. Now let's get a reconnaissance team here, a recce team, just trying to stay concealed. I'm not even going to try and push out with them. I just want to try and get a bit more info. Now over there the Highlanders are once again fighting for their lives, and they're able to take out a couple of Martyrs, potentially with the infantry inside, but I'm not 100% on that. Anyway, the Martyrs just keep dying, one after the next, up to the point where I think there's only one Martyr left. And this is what you see here, what I wanted to have happen. The Territorials are in contact with the enemy, the Leopards are supporting the Territorials as they move forward. And since the Leopards are able to use a bit more distance than the Panzer Grenadiers have on their anti-tank weapon, it's safe so far. Another Aslav 25, trying to get more recon for the Leopards as well as the Territorials, and there are just a ton of units which are threatening the position of the Highlanders there. The Highlanders, in essence though, have already served their purpose. It's a bit harsh, but they have gotten me what I wanted, which was time. I wanted to get time to build up forces here, and I have gotten that time, so I can now make sure that I hold that line and hopefully get them to safety, although there are a lot of threats to the Highlanders, and currently I don't really have that many forces that can deal with them, and there they go. 2 quad stacks of M113s arrive, and that is, considering the low veterancy, I think they're reservists. So the Heimatschützen have arrived. Now, another one of the Leopards arrives in the open field and immediately starts popping off these vehicles. Centurion AVRE has also been arriving. They are very, very slow off-road, but against larger groups of infantry, they are valuable. Very, very valuable. They just have a limited range. They have a range of about 1,000, and you need to get close. So that's what we're going to do, but once they fire, they either wipe out your infantry unit, or they heavily, heavily stun it. Now, once again, more Territorials. More Fusiliers this time. Because I want to do a bit more pushing, and Territorials are... They can do it, sort of, if they have a lot of fire support, which at the moment I do not have. So, time to bring in a couple more warriors, because that gives me autocannons. Now, over here, I had Territorials engaging in M113 with their battle rifle. I'm not sure why, but apparently they thought it would work. So, sure, let's do it. And let's deploy another tank over here on the left. My NTR over here is not strictly non-existent because I still have the SAS. But outside of that, if there is an enemy aircraft, I'm going to be in a bit of trouble. Now there we go. Leopard's moving forward, Centurion moving forward, and the Territorial's moving forward. And over here, I might be able to do a bit more damage with the Aslav. Time to get a chopper over on the right. In case I get flanked, I would love to know about it. I don't really have a base defense unit in this deck. That is dangerous. Could be an oversight. But for now, I've simply had to rely on the helos to try and scout out anything that might be threatening my position. Now let's get a cargo in here because the Milans are starting to run dry. And considering the amount of vehicles, there is absolutely a need for more HGMs. The AVRE is in contact with the Panzer Grenadiers, and in the meanwhile the Martyr is wiping out some of my Territorials. There you go, that's another 3 casualties for the Panzer Grenadiers, and I have another AVRE already in position. The SAS are looking at a Flak Panzer Gepard up close, which I couldn't really get why. Why was there a Flak Panzer Gepard A2? Why was there another one, in fact? Because that's not the only one. Because I was barely using helicopters. He seems to be trying to counter a threat that I'm not actually bringing to field. So I'm not exactly sure why there is a Centurion AVR... No, not Centurion. Why there's a Flak Panzer Gepard over there. But they can be fairly deadly to SAS. Especially up close. That works both ways. The SAS could have killed it if they weren't getting suppressed by both the Flak Panzer and 3 Martyrs. Now, I'm consistently trying to push here. I want to get the... There you go. The Panzer Grenadiers out of the building. I want to get my Centurion AVREs in a position forward to try and help out against whatever pours out of those Martyr 1s. And I want to make sure that the tanks can deal with the Martyrs. Because that's something that the Centurion AVREs don't do at all. Unfortunately, that is when a Fennec TOW 2 arrives, and outside of the SAS, I have no response. Unfortunately, I lose the AVRE. It's not that bad. I'm able to push the Fusiliers forward, finding more Panzer Grenadiers, and immediately I have the Warriors, the AS-1+, and the Aslav 25 trying to deal damage against it. And here comes a second Fennec TOW 2. So he's definitely bringing a lot of vehicles in. Sorry, a lot of helos. Because this is not the first, but the second helo. He is definitely trying to counter all of my units. All of the vehicles that I'm trying to use to support the push of the Territorials. Well, if you want to call that a push. Anyway, time to bring in a Stormer. I need to get some sort of response to deal with this with this aggression from the Fennecs. It's going to take a bit of time for the Stormer to arrive, though. Meanwhile, the mechs is moving forward because there are still more threats. More Martyrs are arriving. There's just a constant pouring in of these Martyrs. The Warriors can only do so much. They, when encountered with a Martyr 1, will win. But I can't really push with them with a Fennec TOW 2 hanging overhead. So I have to be careful. I don't really want to lose that many of my Warriors because they have some very nice autocannons on them. Well, decent autocannons. Once again, there is a big move of vehicles, this time around in contact with the Fusiliers in the building that I just captured. The Mexis, damaged, but still functional, is trying to pick off as many vehicles as possible. And as the infantry is then coming out of the vehicle, the Centurion once again might be useful. I turned off the machine gun there on the Fusiliers to try and have them deal exclusively with the Martyrs. Because the Martyrs are the biggest problem. They're the ones that are suppressing the Fusiliers. They need to go. So targeting those first, and then the AVRE can probably clean up the rest of the field. If it can ever so slowly get into range. There, Panzer Grenadiers. Now there's 5 of them. And now there are none. Although there were shots coming in from the Leopard AS-1+, as well as the C2 Mexis. So it's not like the AVRE did everything by itself.
What are your orders, sir?
Now at this point, he still has quite a few forces, and he's starting to rely upon air power. So the Stormer and the SAS have a go at the F-16W and take it out. Another missile tries to find the Block 15 over there, but doesn't quite get it, and I decide to relocate the Stormer on the right-hand side in Gulf, in case he tries and pulls something like that again. Now there we go. That is one of the Warriors taking out one of the Martyrs. Let's bring in some SBS. But I decide to reconsider. I bring in an AS-350, a recon helicopter. The thing is, those Gepards are still there. And look at that, there's another aircraft. Draken coming in. Bomber. It's not necessarily great news for the Fusiliers, but fortunately I had already moved them. And the warriors get stunned, but don't actually take that much damage. So for now I'm fine. And I've bought a CV for Delta, so I'm ticking a +1. As you can see, I'm trying to really pour on the pressure here. And this time around, actually, everything seemed to be working together quite well. Interestingly, the Stormer... the Stormer there was trying to deal with the Martyr. It's both anti-air and anti-ground, although anti-ground is not great. It's not an ADATS. ADATS has, I think, double the anti-tank value. But I do want to conserve the Stormer missiles in order to deal with bigger aerial threats, not so much ground threats. Interestingly, I find a Flak Panzer Gepard there, just parked. And I'm just trying to put as much pressure there on his spawn zone, if you will, as possible. And once again, the Fennec TOW 2 shows up. Rearmed and ready for another fight. And there's the counterpart. There is the second Fennec. It's terrible news for the Warriors, the AS1 Plus, and the Centurion, which have nowhere to go. It sucks, but I just had nowhere to go for them. Now let's get another CV. I want to really pour on the pressure by getting a +2 going. And in the meanwhile, I'm trying to get the Fennec killed off by the Stormer. But the Stormer is not fast enough to keep up with the Fennec. And the Fennec just keeps running away. More Saracen arriving. Not necessarily the right buy at the time. Because considering what I have, or what I don't have now, I need more fire support. He starts bringing in Flak Panzer Gepards, or Flak Panzer M42A1s, seemingly more relying upon an anti-infantry capability. And I think the Fennecs were there to deal with my vehicles, which, to an extent, they have done successfully. Now, if I can put pressure on Bravo, I might be able to roll up that sector entirely and cut off his spawn. So, let's get the Saracens over there, let's get the Leopard AS1 Plus to support, in case something starts shooting back. And let's try and get some more units in that could be useful here. And I'm just going to go for another Leopard. Because another Leopard here is, well, fairly desperately needed, as the Saracens are not up to dealing with Flak Panzers. There's a Draken coming in, and unfortunately, the Saracens that are pushing forward find themselves in entirely the wrong place and instantly die. Now, there's another tank coming in, so I need to get ready for that. It is very valuable to have the Fusiliers, which I think are the spotters there, that far forward, because I'm able to see everything. Arguably, I should have had a bigger tank in the position with Fusiliers, because that would have been a very, very nice shooter, just to start side-shotting things as they come across that bridge, provided that they have the range. Now, I know that some of the Flak Panzers are still there. I consider buying a Challenger, and the Challenger 2 would have probably been the right decision here. It's the heaviest tank I can field, but I decide against it. I instead decide to buy 2 mortars to provide potentially smoke or fire support. I get another, I get a tracked rapier, because he keeps sending in aircraft against pretty much whatever I send in, and a couple of more Warrior 90s with autocannons to provide firepower against infantry as it is in the open. Now, once again, the Flak Panzers come forward. The Stormer tries to fire at it. The Leopard's dealing with it. Unfortunately, this kind of announces what I'm trying to do. So immediately, the Territorials are starting to take fire from the Wildkat, from 10 Panzer Grenadier 90 that are hiding in there. And I have very, very little fire support actively in position, so I'm pushing too soon. Still, I feel that the initiative is mine. I still feel confident about the match, and I'm just trying to do a bit of scouting here and there, seeing where the Saracens can go, where I'm going to get a response. And basically, I'm forcing him to turtle into Bravo, because he does not have a lot of other options. Yes, he can push Charlie. He could probably push Golf as well, because I have very little there. But considering I want to hold it, I bring in an AH7 with more SAS inside. Now, a few of the territorials survive, so trying to get them back to the building, and one of the Saracens is already on that up ramp trying to get up there in order to see what is out there. There is, in fact, a lot out there. There's probably a quad stack of infantry, there's the Martyr 2. Getting up there is not going to be easy. Now, he puts the CV into Charlie, which is fine. I'm still at a +1. I'm already 117, now 118 points for 1, so I don't mind. He can have that CV, I can still bring a CV over to my sector as I control it there. Leopard A is 1+ here, able to take out a couple of the transports before the, I think, Dragonair are able to get into a decent position. And over here I'm trying to deal with that Martyr 2. Unfortunately, we're going to see quite a bit of that Martyr 2, and not in a good way. At this point, I don't feel confident enough being able to hold the building there with the SAS. So, time to pull the SAS away from the building, trying to keep them alive. And once again, getting a bit more fire support here in the form of another Centurion AVRE. The Martyr 1 either gets eyes on the SAS or is able to shoot it. And I don't really... Yeah, the Leopard AS1 is busy. It has multiple threats. Considering the threat, the VTS1s are the threat to the actual tank. I don't want to lose this tank. The SAS losing is not great, but survivable. Losing the AS1 Plus is more annoying because it's a pretty far forward position that is not in a great... Well, it's a pretty far forward tank that's not in a position that I want to give up. Now there's that Martyr 2 again. That thing just killed my Stormer, which sucks. I was not willing to lose that unit. Time to buy another CV. Let's get Gulf captured. And in the meanwhile, I'm trying to get rid of that Martyr. But the Martyr, I think, got side shots on my Leopard and was able to get rid of it. So now I have no further tanks on the right, except for that already weakened Leopard AS1+. Potentially another Leopard would have been useful. I also have the Leopard C2 Maxis, which has more armor. And that potentially would have been a better unit to use there. But considering the threat at the time, the Leopard AS1+ would have been sufficient to deal with it. Now another Martyr 1, or rather the same Martyr 1, still spotted from the encounter with the SAS. There's the VTS-1 again, and the VTS-1 gets a kill shot on my my Leopard. My AS1+ dies, unfortunately. So that sucks, but so be it. Now I'm hoping that I can counter his Dragonair using my Lynx 87, and in the meanwhile pull the Warrior back and wait for another tank to show up. Unfortunately, reconnaissance is somewhat limited. I do have the SBS, I still have the Milan there, but at the moment I don't really have targets for them. So the SBS needs to go somewhere else and be more useful. There's the other AS1+ that I ordered a while ago, and I finally get a shot on the Martyr 2 and kill it. Took me way too long to deal with that one Martyr. That Martyr did a lot of damage. Far, far more than I would have liked. Time to get another Warrior in. I want another autocannon in that field of Echo. And then meanwhile just driving the CV in and getting the Saracens to provide a bit of a proximity defense, if you want to call it that, for the CV. So far, still at a +1, soon to be a +2. I was really enjoying using this, this Commonwealth deck. Sorry, this Commonwealth deck. It served me really, really well. Now, this is when a Leopard 2A1 and a Leopard AS1+ get in a gunfight. And the Leopard AS1+ gets a shot off, but the Leopard 2 does as well, and promptly gets its weapon jammed. Centurion AVRE one-shot a couple of BGS that are coming down, and the Leopard 2 probably loses sight or cannot get enough gun depression over on that arc there in order to deal with the threats. So this is all fine. It seems to be working rather well. I still have the tracked rapier there, but I do want to get a bit more defense against potentially helicopters, because I still haven't killed those Fennecs. They're still there. Now, since I don't really have a way to deal with the Leopard quickly, I decide to buy myself a bit of time by stunning it. So, mortar shells coming in against the Leopard 2A1, and hoping to just panic that unit and make it less combat effective. It's not a great option, but at the moment it's the only one I have. Once again, having a Challenger 2 would have probably been more useful. But he just keeps pouring in more and more and more units. There's more infantry coming in. There's another Martyr 2. There's more Panzer Grenadiers. There's probably more Heimatschützen in there as well. It's just a ton of stuff. And while he tries to push, he doesn't really seem to have the right combination of units. Because while he's using a lot of transports and a couple of Martyr 2s, he doesn't really have the fire support, aside from the Leopard 2A1 up there. Now the Leopard 2A1 pulls back, and the AS1 Plus over there gets a side shot at it, killing off the Leopard 2A1, and thus further reducing the amount of fire support. At this point, the T2 Mexis is able to fire. I can get the Warrior forward, because the Leopard 2A1 is dead, so I don't really have to fear that much. And I can even use the AVRE again. Getting the mortars to also open up on that position. And the AVRE is pretty much free to engage, whatever it feels like. There's 10 Panzer Grenadiers there. That seems like a good target. The mortar shells are arriving exactly where I need them to. And very quickly, that entire push gets shut down. Trying to pick off the transports first. I don't want my Fusiliers to get too panicked, because a couple of Heimatschützen I can deal with. A whole bunch of transports are mostly annoying. Centurion AVRE over there, dealing with Panzer Grenadiers. Unfortunately, doesn't quite get line of sight, so I just decide to blind shot it. And another Leopard 2A1 pops in. He seems to have no shortage of those tanks. Unfortunately, the Mexis is not quite a threat, or not quite being threatened. But watch this. I try and shoot it. It takes 1 hit point of damage. The Leopard Leopard 2A1 just takes absolutely no shit from the AVRE. It just doesn't care at all. It might, however, care once the Fusiliers get their fangs into it, because they have that very high anti-tank weapon. So I need to try and get that Leopard. Moving forward with the Fusiliers, trying to get the Mexis to do a bit of gunfighting with it, but the Mexis and the Leopard 2A1 are not very evenly matched. I mean, they're fairly close, but the Leopard 2A1 would win that. Now over here, I think he overextends a little bit with the Leopard, because he tries to push forward and then immediately pulls back. And I decided to use the buildings over there, where I initially had the Highlanders as a sort of shadow zone for the Leopards, where they are now. Because if I can move forward, I can probably use the closer range to deal with the Leopard 2A1. If it doesn't immediately run into the Fusiliers, which it does. It takes a hit, it's panicking. And unfortunately, it is able to take out my unit. Not surprising, because it only was 1 Fusilier. Now, the 2A1 consistently gets hit time and time again by the Stormer, and the Stormer, I think, is actually the one that took it out. Fortunately, it still has enough missiles to deal with the rest of the threats, because there are still more of them. Now, 2 more Centurion AVREs coming in. A bit late, relative to what I was doing there, because the infantry are all gone already, so I might as well. And over there, I spot a nice opportunity. I spotted the Flak Panzer Gepard out in the open, and I just decided to start sniping it with the Recce. 2 hit points at a time per shot seems to be doing just fine. Getting another Logi back to base. The Leopard 2 over there is another threat, but the Mex is able to take it out. Unfortunately, it did come at the expense of 2 of my Leopard AS1 pluses, and this is where he surrenders, leading me to a total victory. Total victory, which was really, really nice. Just being able to use this deck from the get-go, I felt really confident about it. The entire deck can be found down below in the description. If you want to use it, adjust it as you see fit, because this is the deck that works for me. Might not work for you. Now, kill list, AS1 pluses did a lot of work, as was expected, because the enemy actually made it fairly easy. There were no smoke screens when he was pushing infantry forward. There were no large amounts of MLRS being shot at me, so all my units were functional. And overall, it just seemed to be really, really well. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Be sure to check out Odyssey, linked down below in the description. That's where I'm going to be uploading some of my vids as well. And I hope you guys enjoyed the vid. Thanks for watching.